This big stack of 4/4, 8-foot random width raw ash, beautiful wood, needs to be broken down into our face frames now. Face frames are 1.5 inches wide by whatever. So in the CAD model, I need 34 pieces, 8 foot long at 1.5 inches. So now we're going to go through and we're going to look for boards that maximizes that 1.5 inches. And we're going to sort them out, put them on the rolling cart, and then we'll roll in and start milling to our heart's content. Then we'll move over to the table saw and rip them down to the 1.5 inches. Now we're probably going to lose some boards and some pieces in there to internal stress, where the board's just going to go cattywampus on us. So we'll go over and above maybe 15%, maybe a little bit more. We'll see what our stack looks like, because this is also going to be the rails and stiles of the door, so I don't want to overdo it. And this is also going to be the beam material here. Regardless of where you get your lumber, take a good look around. The last thing you want is a staple or a nail ruin a new carbide tip on you.
Our first stop in this milling process is the planer. Usually it would be the jointer, but these boards were in pretty good shape, so thankfully we were able to just go onto the planer to get the top and bottom surfaces all squared up. And because the length is so long, we actually had to roll the planer down, I guess, kind of the hallway of the shop to make sure we could get these full sections, since we didn't want to break everything down beforehand. And this did take Ethan quite some time, because we had a lot of board footage to run through the planer and get down to the thickness that we needed. It is a shame that you're milling away a whole bunch of this material and there's really nothing you can do with it. I've tried a couple of things to try to compress the sawdust and basically make myself firewood, or like a fire starter for when we're doing spray projects out in the unconditioned part of the shop. I tried to compress that and then use like old finish or something like that as a bonding material. Didn't work out very well. If anyone's got some ideas, I'd love to hear what anyone has to think down in the comments down below. With two of us in the shop, one feeding, one catching, and putting onto the table, it actually went pretty well. And I got this Wixie gauge on the planer, and we are right on the money with where we want to go. And for long, mind-numbing projects like this, I got one earbud in, Ethan's got the other, and we're keeping a good eye on some F1 while we are running this project to keep ourselves sane. Once all the milling is done, we did go to the jointer real quick and get one side squared up, but we didn't show that because, again, it's kind of just the same thing running over the tools. But then it's over to the table saw, where we're going to break all of this face frame material down to 1.5 inches. You will notice that I have the Harvey Big Eye fence tipped on the side so that I can get my push stick right in there and make sure things are processed through the tables.
We just had a fantastic time ripping all of this ash into these 1.5 inch face frame boards. To be honest, I was actually surprised how well that went. I thought we were going to have a whole lot of tension in there that was going to be a big problem. Right off the rip here, I see a board or two that might not be adequate for a very long face frame, but I think we have enough to work with. I did about 10 extras, so we have lots to spare. So basically, we need to turn all of that into these cuts right here, and then clamp them and glue them and pocket hole them together to make these various different face frames. I also did go out and actually verify the product, verified the box, so that we don't have any surprises when we go to put these together. I wasn't off a little bit. The boxes were in wonderful condition, very accurate, which is always something we strive to do over here, but it should make easy work. We're gonna go ahead and slap the isotunes in, get the Ear Eye Pro on, and we're gonna just chop away and start assembling some face frames.
Cut everything down to final length, we're going over to the miter station, and I always cut off a nice square edge first, and then you will notice that almost always I rotate these boards. And the reason I'm doing that is that if there's any off-cut splinters, kind of cattails from the rotation of the blade, they don't get jammed in the corner and cause an issue with the final length of the pieces.
Once I make the cuts, I am laying them over here near the pocket hole machine, which is how we're going to join all the face frames together. And then I'm coming back over here and marking off what I have cut, because obviously, I don't know, there's 40, 50, 60 parts that we got to keep accounting for. And I'm going to lay them out on the rolling cart kind of in the order of what I have here on my schematic, so we can kind of keep track of what's going on. And also, I will segregate what gets pocket holes and what doesn't get pocket holes, because these actually don't get pocket holes. These are the verticals. It's all the horizontals that get the pocket holes. So I'll kind of separate them as we go. If you look closely here, you can see that I have circled what does get pocket holes on this paper. All these pieces here need pocket holes, and for that I'm going to use the Kreg Foreman over here. And as you can see, I got a little clamp put on the side here with a stopper. There are these plastic stoppers built into the Kreg Foreman, but I was finding an issue with these. So these are successful. I tried dual screws, I tried single screw, and I was finding, I don't know if you can see right here. Let's see if I can zoom in this way. There is a little crack right there, and there's also a little crack right there. No cracks here with these test holes. What I was finding is that with the little plastic stoppers, even so the drill bit spins this way and it wants to push the board this way a little bit, even with the plastic stopper in place, I was finding it was walking a little bit, and that was causing the crack. I am going to go down to a single hole for these face frames, because they are going to be glued, and glue is really the thing that's going to hold everything in place. And I'm worried that having in this hardwood a pocket hole so close to the edge, it's not going to crack every time, but it might crack every so often. And also, they're going to be attached like this, and to have a pocket hole so close to this edge right here, I think the likelihood and the percentage of it cracking is a little bit high. So we'll make sure we have good glue. We'll make sure it's nice and flat with a clamp. Add the pocket hole, which will hold everything in place until the glue sets up, and we should be good to go.
I was careful as we laid out the pieces before cutting the pocket holes to make sure that all of the vertical pieces were left as they were. It's the side portions that have all the pocket holes. So we're just laying everything out so that we can get started in doing our gluing and pocket screwing on the assembly table, which is nice and flat and square, to make sure that everything remains perfectly square for these face frames. Measuring everything out, striking a line across with the square, and then we're going to add some wood glue after we make sure any cattails are out of the way, and then I am using 1 1/4 inch coarse pocket screws. You might notice that I never use an impact driver for putting pocket screws in, and that's because I like the torque settings on a drill. The new Kreg drill is actually really accurate with its clutch, and I do this so that there's less of a chance of stripping out the screw. Once I got everything nice and tight, a quick whack with the mallet to make sure that none of these boards are rotated at all. There are the first couple complete, and I think we have, 3 done, and we got like 30 something to go. Let's get her done.
everybody's favorite point of every project, time to sand. I've done a couple. It looks like we can do 120. I'd have to go up to 180. Also here I have some wood glue, and if there's any gaps, which this is not a good one to demonstrate on because it's nice and snug, but if there's any gaps, you can put a little bit of glue in there, kind of rub it off with your finger, and then quickly go over it with the sander, and the dust will build up in there with the glue and kind of do a wood filler right there to make it look like there's no gaps. And it works very, very well.
When we built all the cabinet boxes, which is a different video, and I can link to that so you guys can catch up to where we are right now, I did not cut any of the pocket holes beforehand, pocket holes to mount the face frames, because in past kitchens that I've done, I've messed some of this up and I wanted to make sure that didn't happen. Now to cut those, I'm actually using the new Kreg Rebel, which is a way to cut pocket holes by bringing the tool to the project versus the other way around. Yeah, sure, you can do this with an R5 or a K5. I don't remember what the smaller ones are, but by golly, is this new Kreg Rebel super fast, cordless, plenty of power, made quick work of adding all of these pocket holes in the cabinet carcasses so that now we can add some glue, make sure everything is clamped nice and snug, and then use, again, the 1 1/4 inch pocket screws to make sure everything is fastened in place. By doing the pocket holes after the fact, didn't mess anything up like I have done in past kitchens where maybe one of the inside panels ended up with pocket holes that I had cut before everything was assembled by mistake. Well, that is a wrap on the face frames, and I do gotta say, looking pretty good. Really not that hard to do. We were lucky that we didn't have a lot of tension in the boards, so we didn't really have any cattywampus face frames to work with. Everything was nice and straight, no tension. That was awesome. The biggest thing that will really help you do face frames like that is make sure you have a flat surface with square sides like the outfeed table that we have. Really makes it much easier. Make sure you guys stay tuned. As you can see, the kitchen is looking fantastic. We've been using it for a couple of months now. Absolutely awesome. Everything's holding up well. Make sure you subscribe so that you can keep track of the playlist. We have much more to come for this project, and we have new projects on the horizon that might involve cutting out the roof of the house. So make sure you stay tuned. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please hammer that thumbs up button. It helps us out, gets this video in front of more eyes, which lets us make more videos. I'm DIY Tyler. You guys have a good one.